Where do you feel as far as your football IQ, where it is now as opposed to a year ago?
Oh, a lot better. I know obviously the routes and protections and I guess the basics. So it's just trying to fit what I learnt last year and put it into what we're learning this year.
Were you able to do much, in the time away from the building here to kind of learn and grow in that area, from the shoulders up?
No, not really. I just obviously had the break and really freshened up and obviously you still think about it, but as far as studying and that sort of stuff, really just enjoyed my time away and now we're back at it working and obviously got the started a bit earlier than everyone else to with the new coach, so that's been great and it's just about learning what I learned from last year and putting it into this year's scheme.
Jarryd,
how much have you?
What are your first impressions of Chip Kelly and how he might integrate you more into this team?
Oh look, I think we're obviously just learning the new system at the moment, and that's the biggest part for us. And we're just doing conditioning at the moment, so we're not out on the field with the coaches. So it's just study and learning the basic plays and the basic formations.
Are there things about that playbook though that might excite you more than last year's when you were learning it? This time?
Oh look, it's a learning curve. We're nowhere near that step at the moment. It's just like I said about conditioning and learning the basics of the playbook.
Are you mentioned that will you be playing running back or special teams again, or might Chip have something different for you? Have you talked about that?
You're gonna have to ask Chip. Like I said, it's conditioning and learning the playbook.
But he hasn't said anything to you. What
No.
he's looking forward to?
Are you feeling more confident than last year, and what areas do you think you've improved upon from this time last year?
Well, obviously, I know the basics of a playbook. That's probably the biggest difference from last year, and can piece plays together of what we what we called it last year to what we're going to call it this year. So those are probably the biggest things, and kind of feel like I've got the blueprint of of a playbook, and it's learning the new calls and being able to put them and obviously change them into the systems that we have now.
Physically, what's changed?
Yeah, I'm not not a lot obviously. It's conditioning at the moment, so we're all working hard, and I think probably for me the probably one thing I worked on was just my hips and being able to get low, and hip strength was probably the biggest thing that we focused on in off season.
Have you had the chance to sit down and actually speak with Chip, and what has he had to say to you?
No.
Hasn't said anything
Oh, I've seen him in that. I said hello to him and whatnot. But as like I said, it's conditioning, and we're in the classrooms with our position coaches. So that's really it at the moment. We don't spend we're not even spending that much time in the rooms with the coaches because of the the rules and the CBA rules. So I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but it's obviously everything moves really fast, and we're just trying to educate ourselves and as much as we can. With the time we have.
Do you feel like you have to prove yourself all over again, that you're starting all over again?
No, not really. Like I said, I learned a lot last year, and I got the blueprint now. So, it's about going over there and perfecting the playbook and understanding what schemes we're running and executing it at a high level.
Joe,
Is it also a bit easier for you, Jarryd, knowing that there's not a culture shock and you don't have to learn how to adapt to American life now as opposed to a year ago?
Oh, definitely. And those things, that they help a lot to be able to come in and know what to expect. Those were the biggest difference from last year. I think I'm a lot more comfortable now to be able to come in and learn straight away. Probably the first 4 days were obviously a bit of a shock and reminded me a lot of last year. But then over the weekend, just being able to study and for everything to come a lot faster than it did last year. Because it's kind of remembering the course from last year and then refreshing that and putting the new cause kind of in my head and changing what we used to call it last year to what we're calling it this year.
Chip Kelly's system puts a big emphasis on conditioning and up tempo. Do you have an advantage in that way? Having a rugby league background and having to be on the field all the time. I mean, your conditioning must be very good.
I think mentally, I do, but I think physically, I think we're all out there doing conditioning, and it's, we know it's a lot more running than what we did last year. So I think mentally, but physically, we're still going to have to adapt.